Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to call this meeting of the Lisbon Town Council to order. Could we all please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Twyla, the roll call.
Councilor Bickford?
Yeah.
Councilor Bowie is excused. Councilor Cody?
Here.
Councilor La Rochelle is excused. Councilor Lutt?
Here.
Councilor Mason? Here. Councilor Pomelo?
Here.
All right, first item of business, Twyla.
Is under the consent agenda. Order 2011-93 to approve the renewal victuals licenses for Good Time Lanes, Mark's, Riverside Dairy Bar, the minutes of May 17th, 2011, and a mass gathering permit for Moxie Day.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
Next item.
Under Council Orders, Resolutions, and Ordinances, Order 2011-94, sewer pump replacement.
Okay.
Ryan is here to discuss that and put it back out to
Good
bid.
evening. After the last meeting, we went out to bid for the pump, for the D&B pump station. We went to Stevens Electric, T-Buck Construction, and ITT Flight Corporation. We got back 2 bids from ITT Flight of $25,260 and Stevens Electric and Pump for $24,276. Recommend awarding the project to Stevens Electric and Pump.
Do I have any questions or comments from council on that?
I make a motion that we accept the bid.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Anything from the public? All right, okay, all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
Thank you.
And the next item, Twyla?
Order 2011-95, line striping bids.
And Ryan again.
Okay. Welcome back, Mr. Layton.
Thanks. This year, we put out bids for line striping to Markings Inc. and Lucas Striping, kind of a small window of opportunity for bidders. Markings Inc. was the only one to submit a bid, and that was $15,428.16. They've been the same company that we've used for the last 2 or 3 years, and it doesn't seem like anybody else has been able to compete with them. We did get a verbal quote from Lucas Striping of $16,161. But again, they didn't meet the requirements to put in a formal bid, and I recommend going with Markings Inc. again this year.
All right, anything from council on that?
I just was curious. You gave us a listing of the roads that are going to be striped, and some of them are state roads. We stripe those. Are we reimbursed for that?
We are, I believe so, for winter and summer maintenance in some respects. I don't
Okay. I was
have
just,
much experience with that part of it yet.
okay. Just curious.
It's never enough.
I'm
Right,
sure
yes,
it's not. That's why I asked.
Are these the only roads that require the striping?
These are the only roads that have been striped as far as I know.
For all of
This
these
is a
years.
list that was prepared by the Public Works Director.
Anything further from council? Anything from the public on road striping? All right, do we have a motion on this?
Make a motion to accept the bid.
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next item?
Order 2011-96, fuel bids.
We opened the fuel bids today. We only had Irving Oil for the heating fuel. It came in at $3.38 a gallon, and they were the only bid we received for that, for the heating fuel. And diesel was $3.36 a gallon.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes, certainly, Larry.
Just like to point out for the community that we asked the people that were bidding on the fuel prices to bid with the usage for the school, so we were doing a combined effort. And one of the things for this bid is that we have a price in front of us that is actually not going to be locked in until June 13th, when the school department could bid on it as well. So I just want to give consideration or that thought to the other counselors, so that when we make a decision about whether we're accepting the bid that's in front of us, we know that that could change between now and June 13th.
Well, it would be locked in for us, but not for the school, that's my understanding of it.
It says they're not able to hold the bid at the fixed rates until June 13th, so because of the volatility of the market, it could change between now and then.
Well, it says here, it will be held until June 13th as requested, which was part of our bid document. We requested it to hold it at least until the 13th. So once if the school votes to accept it, that's the price.
It says right there in the bid, they won't be
Not able to hold the bid fixed rates until June 13th as requested. So I take that to mean that they're not holding it.
So they didn't really even meet the spec then, if that's what we requested of them. So I think we should open it up again and see if we can get somebody else to bid, if they're not gonna give us a hold on it.
We'll give an opportunity maybe for the other bidder that we had been talking about.
Do that.
Makes sense to me.
So you need a motion to reject the bids.
Do I have a motion to reject the bid?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Seconded. Any further discussion? Anything from the public? All right. All those in favor of rejecting the bid and opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
All right, we'll come back to this issue again, I believe, at our next meeting if we get some more bids. on the 21st. Okay, next item, Twyla?
Order 2011-97, Personnel Policy Amendment, Section 90, 15.5, pay periods.
This is the amendment that you asked to go back and add line D, where it says if the employer error occurs, the employee must see the finance director and a correction will be done and a new check issued within 24 hours. If the employee makes an error, the correction time may be longer. It's what this change is asking us to go to biweekly payroll versus weekly. It's some cost savings in that for us, so, and all the unions have agreed to do that.
Anything from council on this? How do we feel?
I'll make a motion that we accept it as written.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion from council? Looks good to me. Anything from the public? No one wants to speak on pay periods? All right. All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
Next item?
Order 2011-98, mileage reimbursement rate.
We had presented this to you at our last meeting. You had asked to see what the difference would be. I based it on what our past budget dollar amounts were and what we have used year-to-date. The difference would be, from what we have budgeted, a total of $1,201.14 more. Year-to-date, we are at $758.39 more if we were to go with the 51 cents, which is the IRS standard. There'll be no change to the budget. It's just, if somebody goes over what they have, then they won't get reimbursed. So, this is what you're looking for, what the difference would be, based on usage. And this wouldn't take effect until the new budget on July 1.
Okay, and you have that factored into your budget already?
Yes.
Okay,
No, well,
Oh.
we aren't increasing the mileage on any of it.
okay.
Just, this would be a difference of payout. Everybody'd have to hold the line, travel less.
So basically, you're holding the mileage, just going up on the amount per mile.
Right.
Am I reading the spreadsheet correctly to indicate that actually people aren't using the amount budgeted or the amount projected year-to-date?
Yeah, that was year-to-date with the last budget numbers that we produced.
Do I have any other further comments from council on this? What do people think? Are you okay with that? Do you want to go forward with it, or what? Anything from the public? Public have any comments on mileage? Okay, do I have a motion then?
I'll make a motion to accept it at the 51 cents per mile.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
All right, next item?
Order 2011-99, Moxie Day street closures.
This is a request that's made every year to close off certain streets for the Moxie Day. It's nothing different than we normally do.
I'll make a motion that we accept it as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion from council?
Is that nothing has changed from last
Nothing has
year?
changed.
Nothing has changed, yep.
Good evening, Council. I would just point out that, number one, there is a slight change because the festival is spreading out, if you will, from the traditional area on Main Street up to MTM. The first item asks for the closure of School Street from the Main Street intersection to Vining Street for that period of time that's cited there in the letter. So that is one slight change, and again, the idea being is to include, our community center up there at MTM as a bigger part of the festival. So that was the idea. There'll be vendors there, there'll be attractions and things of that nature.
People will still be able to get into the parking lots and behind the MTM, right? Because that's, I know a lot of people use that when they're going to like the
Sure.
library book sale.
Yeah,
there at
I
the MTM.
believe.
We want to make sure that's still open to get in there.
Yeah, you can go up School Street
I
and
look to
behind.
my co-chair to help me with that bit of
Just give your
geography.
thumbs up.
Yeah, so, okay, as long as we
Sean
make sure people can
indicates
get in
yes.
there, yeah. People don't have to carry their books, a long way away. People like myself with a bag full in each arm. All right. So we have a motion on the floor to accept.
As
yeah,
presented.
as presented, okay. Sorry, I lost track of thought for a moment there. Okay, any further discussion? Anything else from the public? All right then, all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
And the next item?
Order 2011-100, Council Working Rules, Amendment Section 74-201.
I'd actually like to table that until another meeting, so that everybody has an opportunity to look at the way that the council working rules were revised and handed out last week with our packets.
All right, I don't have a problem with tabling that. Does anyone else have any issues with tabling that?
I think I have to make a motion, don't I,
Right.
to?
You can just move it to another
Okay,
agenda.
Just move it to
Okay.
another. All right, we will move that to another meeting, and we'll deal with that when we get a chance. All right, next item?
Order 2011-101, Wellhead Protection Ordinance. This is the first reading. It will require a roll call vote.
All right,
You should have in your packets, have an opportunity to read the ordinance as drafted. There are some changes that were in blue and red.
those are the changes from the
The
town
previous-
attorney.
The previous one. We've also, so for council to see, these are where the wellheads are, these marks. That's Mike. Oh, Mark. Mike, Cody, you want to get up and just point out where
The areas are on that
the
map.
areas are on the map so the councils can see?
Okay, there are 3 districts, District 1, 2, and 3. The District 1, you can hardly see it on here, but it's a pink color. Those are the District 1 areas, and those are the most restricted.
And that's like right around the Moody well entrance right there, and then
Entrance, and I believe there's
one down in,
here
right, by Davis Street, yeah, St. Anne Street, yeah.
And then there's one here across the street at the Bauer.
Okay,
So those 3 are the most restricted. Then you have the District 2, which is this big purple circle here, in all 3 locations, which is a little less restricted, but it'll still be pretty restricted. Then you have a District 3. I think the only District 3, oh yeah, there is another purple one down here, way down by Hatch Road off Ferry Road.
right along the riverbank there, yeah.
Correct, and that would be District 2. And then we do have a District 3 that's way up here, the green circle way up here, that's up by Edgecombe Road.
Okay,
I believe that's the only area we have that, District 3. There is an area down here circling this whole Davis Street area, but you can hardly see the green. So there is 3 districts, and 1, 2, and 3. And again, the pink areas are the most restrictive, so.
and this has been run by the planning board. Have they seen
Yes,
this over, just to be
yeah.
sure they're okay with that?
They are.
Because I think those changes are just there to make sure that the work being done to make sure, monitoring it at Main Electronics
That
is
was-
all
Yeah, that
in
was the only
compliance.
change, that if the engineer felt there was a need to go out and get a third-party opinion from a geologist or hydrologist, they would do that. Otherwise, if everybody was comfortable with what was presented in that one.
Yeah, I can understand Main Electronics doesn't want to be caught in a catch-22 where they're told to do one thing by DOT and we won't let them do it on our
That was a
ordinance.
big,
Right.
big dispute.
I have a question, Mark.
Go ahead, Lori.
On page 6, it's just talking about the above-ground bulk storage up to 10,000 gallons. Do we have businesses in any of those zones right now that are storing that amount of chemicals or materials?
Where's that?
Page
Page
6.
6, okay.
Which one?
It makes reference to the above-ground bulk storage of up to 10,000 gallons. Up to 10,000 gallons allowed as an accessory used to manufacture in order to recover chemicals used during the manufacturing process. Manufacturers existing at the time of this adoption of this ordinance and located in Zone 2 may install reclamation processes with the above-ground storage for up to 10,000 gallons for reuse on site. And I was just wondering if there's any existing businesses, so that if we go ahead with this, we know, are there businesses already? And then we know that there wouldn't be anybody else that would be allowed to do that, because that would be the only grandfather.
And they're required, I think, to have an SPCP plan in place to contain it, so.
Right, I think that would be if they had had a spill in the past and it was discovered and they had to clean it up.
Yep.
It wouldn't be prohibited from doing what they need to do.
But it wouldn't matter if there's nobody that's already
But I mean, there might be
fit.
something out there that has been discovered that we haven't found yet. Anything further from council? Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the water department people to what their opinion of this is.
Certainly. There's someone here from the water department who'd like to speak on that?
We just received this this week, early this week, and we have not had a chance to discuss it in an open forum at a meeting, and we'll be doing that on Monday night. I know Mr. Adams has gone through and highlighted some materials, and I don't know if he wants to share any of that tonight or not, but we will be discussing this at our meeting on Monday night.
All right, and this is only our first reading, so we will be back and we'll have a public hearing at our next meeting for people who want to discuss it.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to say that the water department met with you folks a couple of weeks back at a workshop. And at that workshop, it was stated that you folks use experts to get your information because you're not experts. But I know I was not consulted in this revision in any way.
We consulted in the process before that. It's been going on for several years, as you yourself pointed out.
This is not the product that the water department presented to the town.
I don't understand your point.
My point is, you changed what the experts recommended to the town.
Do you have a specific objection to this point?
I do,
Okay, go ahead.
okay? Under the Zone 2,
Which page are you looking at, Paul, so we can follow along, please?
page 1,
Okay.
Zone 2 district. This location right here was identified as a 1,500-foot circle around that well site. Now it's moved to whatever this is. I don't know who recommended that, but that's not what the water department recommended.
Mr. Cody, are these the same, John Maloney and Ferg Lee were the original draft or writers of this ordinance? And has anything changed on the map since that time?
No, originally, back a year or two ago, you're right, there was a big circle, 1,500-foot circle, but then the updated wellhead protection, this is what John Maloney came up with. So, and this is what's been reviewed and gone through, so.
But again, it was not brought to the water department to discuss that. On page 3, there is a reference to section 70-190 up at the top, the first paragraph. I talked with Mr. Cody today, and he could not point out to me what that is.
I believe that might have been a typo, because if you look in your zoning at 70-191, it is, it's part of the, I think it was just a typo. And I tried to explain that to Paul. He more or less kind of agreed, I guess. Under conditional uses for if we're going out for conditional uses, which is mentioned in this wellhead protection, and that refers to conditional uses. And if you're looking at the zoning, it's 70-191, not 190. I think it was just a typo.
So that needs to be corrected to 70-191.
No, the 190, yes, correct, right.
Okay, and on that same page, under the chart or the table, under heating oil storage consumptive use up to 275 gallons, that line was added. That was actually added after this had been seen by the planning board. Now, I know Mr. Eldridge said that the planning board bought off on the changes. Was there a public meeting on that?
They had already approved it. The only language changes that were made, Paul, in this was the oversight on page 6.
No, I can show you this copy that I've highlighted. There are numerous changes, not just word changes, actual changes. This is one of them.
Well, my understanding, Paul, was that the planning board saw this as is, except for the one for the changes in page 6, which was the oversight of, on section 14. And as far as I knew.
Well, I'm telling you, this line right here, under heating oil storage, is a new line since the planning board saw this and approved it.
Well, if there's anybody from the planning board here to validate that, that would be fine, but I don't know, Paul.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Could I make a recommendation
Yes.
that we go down through and have Paul point out some of the changes that are on here? This is a fairly new document for me as well, and so that we can get our arms around it, because it sounds like we need to look at it ourselves, being a first reading, look at the changes and any oversights or errors that might be in there, and then we may have to get clarification from the planning board, give the water department an opportunity to look at it next week, and then I'll come back to the board again with
That
with
makes sense to
changes.
me.
That's why you have a first reading.
Right, that's what
Yeah.
the first reading is for, is to make sure it's out there and that we have a chance for people to give us feedback at a later meeting.
Paul, do you have, that, other than that heating
Yes.
one, do you want to keep going on to give
Sure.
us the changes that you've got?
Okay, under petroleum product storage, which is the next line below, or actually the second line below that one, there was a addition to the line itself, which may or may not be a substantial change, but that line, either new or used, including heating oil above 550 gallons, with note 17, that statement was new. On page 5, under waste processing and storage disposal, see number 14. I'm not sure what they're indicating there is number 14.
On page 5?
On page 5?
Yes, page 5, under waste processing.
Yep.
That first line, it says see number 14. Again, I don't know what that's referring to.
Is it number
But that
14 on
doesn't have
page
to do
6?
with
I assume it's
demolition
the number 14 on page 6.
Right, right. Okay, next page on 6, under number 7. And some of these changes may make sense to the people that wrote them, but in my view, we're trying to make something that's readable to the user, our residents, when they're trying to use this ordinance. And number 7, it looks like they just changed the wording around, but I'm not sure. So somebody really needs to look at that and determine whether that's just a change in wording or if it actually changes the meaning.
Can you tell me what the language used to be in that, or?
Well, actually, I can't.
Right, because 7 is the one that refers to the heating oil storage that you talked about earlier.
Right. 7. Okay, the original statement was, must comply with main rules for heating and fuel storage. And now it says, must be in accordance with rules promulgated by the Fire Marshal's Office and the Maine DEP. Again, that kind of sounds like just a wording thing, but I don't know what the main rules on heating and fuel storage relate to. Back down on number 10, they increased the number of gallons for a fuel tank from 250 to 275. And they increased the storage of gasoline from 5 to 15. Oh, I'm sorry, 10 to 15.
Is it possible that they changed it from 250 to 275 only because the majority of tanks in people's homes are 275?
75.
That may be so,
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
that may be so.
Yep, that makes sense to me.
But if you go back to, let me go back to the chart here. That note number 10 refers to that new line that I told you they added to the chart or the table. Well, again, that's in dispute as to what the water department recommended in District or Zone 1. We didn't want any fuel products or petroleum products in Zone 1. And someone added this line that allows fuel products to be in Zone 1. So, that's the change there. The next change was 14, which Mr. Eldridge alluded to earlier, that, in my view, you have to be a lawyer to understand it. It's quite lengthy. And in my view, there's two issues that I have with it. And again, as Mr. Bauer said, we haven't really had a chance to discuss it within the water department. But where it addresses monitoring practices and that kind of thing, the lawyer from Maine Electronics had voiced at our last hearing with this, back when we presented it to the planning board in 2005, whenever, or 6, whatever it was, that they didn't want to have to come back to the town if there was a change to their process in some way, that they felt getting DEP's input or whatever was good enough. Well, the water department's view is there's never too much scrutiny when it comes to our water. So, yeah, they may have to come back and explain exactly what they're doing that they've already explained to the DEP. But shouldn't we know, as the users and holders of our resource, know what they're doing?
Having
That's
sat, on
our-
the, having sat on the planning board, I agree with you on that, that I
Right.
think it's better to have some local oversight if it's possible.
Right?
So I agree with you.
You know, yeah, it may cost them a little bit extra, but it's your resource, and I think you should have, you know,
agree with you.
strict, knowledge of what's going on.
And I
The other issue I had
I just
on-
want to say, this is here to protect your system, so I think we definitely do want your input. We don't want to go ahead with something that the water department is very strongly against,
Yep.
so.
Okay, and in that same note 14, it refers to the town engineer as far as the person that's going to determine whether Maine Electronics needs to go to the planning board or not. I'm not sure what qualification allows the engineer to make a decision based on water. I don't think he's a hydrologist, and I don't think he's a civil engineer. So I just don't agree with that part of the write-up in that note 14.
I would think that water should be left to water people.
Yes.
Well, I think if you go down to page 7, Paul, it references going to the water district with their review as well.
Could you point that out to me where it says our review? That's right. It doesn't say we review.
No, it doesn't.
No.
Right, it's
you
only
refer-
if the engineer determines that a review is
Review.
appropriate, then it goes to you and the planning board, but if he doesn't, then it doesn't.
That's right.
Right.
I just had some question on that same, back up at the top, second paragraph of page 7, where it talks about, I highlighted it, hang on a second. That the person applying for the permits in this area are required to get a report from a qualified professional, but then the town engineer could request that they have a second qualified professional report at the expense of the person submitting the report.
Where is it?
It looks like it says at the bottom of the second paragraph on page 7, the town engineer shall have the authority to initiate a peer review of the report by a qualified professional to be conducted at the expense of the party submitted in the report. But I thought that the way
Yeah.
that it reads earlier in that is that the person would have to get a report anyways. So it could be disputed and ask for a second opinion? Is that what that's saying? I guess I'm not sure what was behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like, I think there's just duplicative language in there, unfortunately.
Okay, you ready to move on to
Go
the
ahead.
next one?
Sure.
Okay, note 16. Again, I'm not sure that, whether it's actual content or just rewording. We haven't really had a chance to sit down and digest it, but the last sentence in that note 16, where it starts in zones 2 and 3, products in 5-gallon or smaller containers, that whole sentence is new.
Anything further?
Okay, on page 8.
Oh, I had another,
Oh, sorry,
sorry, I
go
had
ahead,
another
Laura.
question, if we don't mind kind of
Oh,
going back and
go
forth.
ahead.
Number 18, it's talking about stumps generated on the site may be landfilled on the site or landfilled someplace
Yes,
else?
on the site.
Yeah.
Okay,
You can self-bury stumpage, is
Okay.
what it's referring to. And let me just back up a minute. Under the approved copy from the planning board, there was actually another note that was totally removed from this copy. Note 16 from the old copy was totally removed.
What did that refer to?
Uh,
well, we don't have a 17 either here, it looks
It
like we
was, it
skipped
was
that.
referring to,
Probably 17 on this one.
again, petroleum of 550 gallons. Yep. Again, that was removed. Again, I don't know why, and we haven't really had a chance to digest it, but that was removing some kind of restriction.
Go ahead.
Okay?
Yep, go ahead.
On page 8, the type and scope of information in paragraph number 1, down towards the bottom of the page, the note is all new. And then the next change would be on page 17. And again, in our view, the water department's view, this is a very substantial change here. On 10A1, excavation shall be limited to 24 inches above the seasonal high water line. That was 5 feet. And now it's 24 inches.
So it's 5 feet total, no matter how low the water table is? Is that what it was before? I mean, it's
No,
5 feet below
it-
the surface, or 5 feet?
Has to be 5 feet
5 feet
above the
Okay, it was
high
reduced
water.
to 2 feet, okay.
Right,
Yeah, okay, I see that.
In other words, they've allowed you to dig closer into the water.
that's right.
Yeah. Have anything more?
Ready for the next
Yes,
one?
go ahead.
Page 18. Okay, the section 70-801, under sand and gravel pits. The words expansion of were added to that statement. Now, again, that seems like just a change in words, but is that implying just expansions or all gravel pits? It really has to be defined and clarified what that actually means. And the last two words, zones 1 or 2, were added to that as well. And again, I'm not sure whether they were trying to exclude or only isolate certain areas in that wording.
Steve, were these changes made by the town attorney?
Yes.
Okay,
As far as I could not tell you if these were changes that were made.
right.
I did not
You don't have the
compare it to
previous
the
one, right,
original
okay.
document yet, so. I'm assuming that Roger had the draft that they approved
Mhm.
and then came back and made some changes, the normal procedure.
Okay. And I don't know if you want me to read the whole thing, but that's page 18. And all the highlighted is added stuff.
Can you see where it starts?
Can you say where it starts?
Oh,
and
I'm
where it
sorry,
ends?
19, page
Page
19.
19.
Extraction of sand, does it start there?
Basically, paragraph 3, 4, and 5 are all added.
Here it says 5 feet.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can make a copy of this on my
right, there's the 5 feet reference here, right
PFD.
there.
Right there.
Oh, yeah.
PDF.
Somehow it got
Yeah.
changed to 24.
Yeah.
The reference is back here to 5 feet.
Right, this,
Yeah, Mr. Bauer made a suggestion. I can certainly copy this to a PDF file, and I can email it to all of you.
yes. Yeah,
And it will come out in color, so you'll be able to see the highlights and whatnot.
What they're just saying up here, Paul, on this side on page 19, number 3,
Yeah.
does have the reference to
5 feet.
gravel or other material that's been or will be extracted below the 5 feet.
Yeah, I saw that was in there.
Yeah.
But it still gives, in the paragraph above that one, the discretion to go down to 24 inches.
Right.
Right, it looks like it would be a conditional use of the planning board to go below 5 feet, is what it
Right,
seems to
right.
me.
Yeah. And finally, on page 20, there was just another, I need a clarification on paragraph 8. It refers to section 70-570. Again, I don't know what that reference is. I couldn't find it. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Paul. I think
thank you,
that's some
Paul.
interesting suggestions there we need to think about. Anything further from the public? All right, you take the podium if you'd like to speak.
Dorothy Fitzgerald, a resident of Lisbon Falls. I'm curious, isn't there another aquifer, I don't know if it's a wellhead, up on, often Route 9, to the east of Route 9, near the top of the hill, down and back. town history always said that there was an aquifer down there. No?
I think what you get confused on is at one time, the property up behind my place was considered for a underground well
Right.
or an underground storage capacity. But there was never any water there. In fact, if you go talk to the people in the area, they've got some 560, 70-foot post holes.
Yeah.
There's no water up there.
Right. Well, that I'm aware of, but that would have been down.
Still
down
none.
in that. Okay.
They've looked for it. There is no water up
My
there.
error? Thank you.
That's why we have to be very careful what we have, because we don't have a lot of great sources in town.
Hi, Celine Goddard of 167 Ridge Road. I have a question for you. Wouldn't it make sense that if we were reviewing a wellhead ordinance, that we would present it to our water department people for review before it even went to the planning board for their recommendations if they're water specialists? I've called the town office recently to speak to our codes people and our engineer and ask questions, and they really had no opinion. So if we're going to start putting them in charge of our water supply and making recommendations, I have huge concerns about that. And I really think that they should have, this whole process does not make sense. Maybe you could explain that to me, why it didn't go to them first?
Do you know where this process originated? Was it
This process, as far as I know, was prior to me coming here, originated with the water department. Correct, Paul? Correct. And AVCOG, which is the Androscoggin Valley Council of Governments, were the original authors of this.
It was
Right?
a coordinated effort.
Okay.
They're the experts as far as writing ordinances, and we collaborated with them to write what we wanted to see in the ordinance.
Right, so I mean, it did begin with you guys, and then it went to the planning board, and it's been stalled there for a couple of years, and, you know.
It's gone back and
Yes.
forth to AVCOG, to our
Right.
attorney, back to the planning board.
Right, and we need to get a planning board approval, and then we can approve it, is the goal. Anything further from the public? Go ahead.
I'd just like to ask one comment. If the planning board had a public meeting on this, these drastic changes were made, shouldn't have it gone back to the planning board for another public meeting?
According to our attorney, the substantive changes, and Paul is pointing out that a lot of these are different from what he says is the original planning board approval. I can't validate that, so.
Well, that's what I'm
My
saying.
you gonna let me finish, Ken? Thank you. My understanding was they approved a document, and there was some changes which were on page 7. And on page 6, which they knew was going to be changes in terms of oversight for monitoring coming in, and they were okay with that. And it was approved based on that.
So they knew all these changes were coming out, but that the
Well,
public did not know it?
I'm not saying all the changes that Paul has pointed out. I can't tell you if they looking at the same document that Paul's looking at.
Well, my comment is that this thing is basically almost maybe 30, 40% rewritten from what it was when it was presented to the public at the planning board?
That's what you're saying. There's nobody here from the planning board tonight, and I can't validate that.
I'm just making a statement that I
Well, I'm
felt,
making a statement that what the planning board approved is what our attorney had, okay? And the changes that you see in the document in the blue were the changes that were made. Now, if Paul is saying that the changes were made prior to that, or after the fact, I would not know if that was the case. And John Potvin, who is the chairman of the planning board, is not here tonight to validate any of that.
so let me refresh this. Okay, went to the planning board, they worked it up, public meeting, it was rewritten by the lawyers, now it's sent to you guys. You guys have no idea of which version you're looking at, you're just looking at this, so you don't know the changes to it. And can I finish?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ken.
And then, now, you're gonna vote on it. The first reading's today, the next reading is the next meeting, is that correct? Mm-hmm. All right, then you're gonna vote on it. That's the process of this, we're going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we have, the water department has to meet Monday, we'll review it, make our inputs, present them to you at the next meeting. Do you have time enough to consider those changes?
Absolutely. We may have to go back to a first reading if it's substantial changes that you want to make, but we certainly would not have to approve it.
I wanted to get the timeline.
Right.
That's
We're
the
not bound
process.
into
All right.
approving it.
Thank you.
I would also like to make a recommendation that we send it back to the planning board as well for
Okay, do you feel that?
comparison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll second that.
I have a note here to get in touch with John Potvin to make sure he substantiates that all these changes were made either before or after it was approved.
So is that an official motion to send it back to the planning board?
That's my motion.
Okay, and seconded?
I second it.
Okay, any further discussion on sending this back to the planning board rather than
well-
voting on it?
Could I clarify that I'd like the water department's input, and then with all of that together, we can send it back to the planning board so that they're looking at a document in its entirety, so that they could then make recommendations back to us as needed. Okay?
Mark,
Yes, go ahead, Larry.
it's Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. Can we, I don't know the correct term to use for this, but can we do a better job of keeping track of this so that we have a million other things in this town that depend on this ordinance being passed first? So before we do any changing to the comprehensive plan or anything else, we need to make sure that we have this document finalized and approved before we go any further. So instead of having this delayed for another 3 years or 4 years, can we suspense it for the next council meeting, or keep track of it so that it doesn't go 3 years before somebody goes, oh yeah, where is that? It's out on the table now, let's keep it as a hot item, and let's work it through the process, no matter what it is, but keep it at the top of the list before we go doing anything else or making other changes to this town
I certainly
without
agree with
having that
that.
document approved.
I just want to say that we are a little bit held hostage to the planning board schedule since they only meet once a month, so that's been part of what slowed down the process, I believe. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, I just have one last concern. In the rewriting of this wordage, it sounds as if the planning board is making things less restrictive for petroleum storage, digging closer to the aquifer system. In this day and time, with our environment and the issues that we have, why? It does not even make sense that this was even suggested or written in the manner that it is. It makes no logical sense. I am not a soil specialist or a water specialist, but the fact that this was even proposed, it's beyond my thinking. I'm sorry, it just does not make sense to me, and it does disturb me, because once we lose that water source, what are we going to do? I'm sorry, I don't mean to have a tone, but the logic in this whole process does not make sense to me.
I understand. I think the reason that it may have been added in is so we don't create a lot of non-conforming uses by, if you already have houses that are in that district, you're not saying, all those people are not conforming now because suddenly their heating tank that's been in the basement for 50 years is, now out of the correct zone. Go ahead,
I'd
Gina.
just like to add, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but anything that's been put in here is nothing less than what DEP allows anyways. We can't go any less than
Right.
that, correct?
Right.
So it's not like we're lowering standards any more than what DEP allows. We're raising our standards, if anything, according to what the water department wants to do. And in my opinion, to some degree, that can be overregulation by what Mark just stated. So I don't think it's anything that we're putting in jeopardy any more than DEP would do.
Go ahead,
Well,
Paul.
I'd like to respond to that comment. The pit over the old Dragon Pit is beyond, or was developed prior to 1970. DEP does not regulate pits that are older than 1970 unless they expand. So that gravel pit, unless they go out beyond the borders of what was there in 1970, they can dig to China if they want to, because there's no regulation on those pits. So to say, oh, well, the DEP's watching out for us, they aren't.
That's not what I was referring to.
Well, I'm just saying, we can't,
Excuse me, I was referring to what she mentioned as far as the fuel storage. That's what I was referring to, Paul. I brought nothing up about the pit, and I didn't understand the part about the pit. I'm beg
but
to.
I'm just saying, we can't,
Okay,
Paul,
but that's
calm-
not the
calm
point,
down.
Paul. That wasn't the point.
No arguing between counselors and the public, all right? I understand your point, Paul, and that's why I think we need to get on top of this, and that's why I'd like to get it moved so that we can get this passed.
Okay.
But if you guys don't like the current version, then I don't want to ram something through that you're not okay with. But just be aware there'll be a time delay. If we go back to you and back to the planning board, it's going to take some time. All right, so we have a motion on the floor to send it back to the planning board and have the water department work with the planning board to make sure that you're all okay on that. And do I have all those in favor? And opposed? Okay, turn to the planning board.
Vote carried 5-0.
Next item?
Order 2011-102, general unit union
Okay, we're
contract.
going to need to take a short recess here, I believe.
Why don't you motion to go into
Okay.
executive session and come back to that?
Okay, I need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session. Do I need to read the orders?
Yes, you do, yes.
Okay. 2011-106, Order 1, MRSA 4056D, Labor Negotiations. 2011-107, Order 1, MRSA 4056E, Consultations with Legal Counsel. 2011-108, Order 1, MRSA 4056C, Acquisition of Real Property or Economic Development.
Sorry to, have to break the meeting in half, but I don't want to spend any more money on the lawyer than we have to. Trying to save.
When we leave tonight, I'll just need signatures on it. Don't you vote for it first?
I need to apologize to them for that, too.
All right, we're coming back into session now, and I'd like to apologize for having to take this time and not get to the award ceremony right away. We should have done that up front at the beginning, and in the future, we will try to do that. All right, next order of business, Twyla?
Did you want to do order 2011-102 general union contract?
Mm-hmm.
So we'd like to start, okay.
I'll make a motion.
Second it.
Any further discussion from council? Nope. All right, all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
And next order of business?
Order 2011-103 Public Works Department union contract.
So moved.
Second it.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
And I believe we're not going to do the police unit. We're going to go right on to the next one. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So the next item of business?
Lisbon Emergency Award Presentation.
Lee? Yep. Howdy. You're on.
John?
Come on in, Ryan. Come on in, Sean. You can get right up there, Ryan. Right up here. Right up there, Sean. If you get on the other side of it.
I know.
I'll have to build a whole room just for
Great guy.
Hi, my name's Sean Mateer, and I'm the Deputy Chief at Lisbon Emergency. This is Jim McDonald. He's also on the Board of Directors as well as Danielle. And if you kind of think that this is getting to be a little bit of a habit of us taking just a short minute of this meeting to really honor some people, it really is reflected that we are a really good town here, and we have a lot of good services. And when you think about the worth of a service, I mean, we're talking contracts tonight and a lot of money, and you have to kind of look and say, you know, what is this worth? You know what I mean? What are we going to get out of it? And really, worth doesn't really affect you until you really experience it yourself, until something really happens to you, and then you realize, geez, this really is worth it for us to have police here, for us to have ambulance here, for us to have good dispatchers here, and for us to be a town that really is well supported with our infrastructure. And so I can tell you that I've been a paramedic for over 25 years. My wife's a paramedic. If you are ever in need here in the town, you would probably want us to show up at your house. Unfortunately, that's not really the way it works. We all know that we have jobs and we're away during the day, and so it kind of says to yourself, well, what does that leave the town? And where that leaves the town is really the first link in that chain of survival, really the main link of when you have a problem or you stop breathing, you have 4 minutes until your brain cells start to die. And so that's really the key link. I mean, they can bring patients to us all day that never had the first link, and their survival rate's going to be very poor. And so that's why we're here tonight, to really honor people who have made that first link. In other words, to get those patients to that next link, and then so on and so on. And there's never a guarantee that one of those links at the end won't break down because the patient was so sick. But at least they got it started, which is really key in this whole project. And so this is 2 letters of recognition. They both read the same thing because they happened on the same day, and I was actually on this call. And I think it's remarkable that what these 2 officers have done for us. I mean, it just speaks volumes to how good the teamwork is before we get there of what we have to do, because they're there within the first 4 minutes. We're there probably in the 4 to 6 minute range. And so it just goes to show you that it's a key important thing of what these guys do to help us. Because without any basic life support, advanced life support is kind of useless. If you don't get the breathing and the circulation, nothing else matters. And so these are 2 letters of recommendation. Let me just throw my glasses down, because when you get old, this is what happens. But on the 17th day of May in 2011, the Lisbon Emergency Board of Directors officially recognizes Officer Ryan McGee and Officer Sean Kelly for their outstanding efforts to save and service the community on August 30th of 2009, so last year. You can imagine it was pretty hot. On such a date, Lisbon Emergency was dispatched for a patient that was unresponsive and possibly not breathing. When Officer McGee, one of the first to arrive on scene, he found the patient pulseless. With the help of Officer Kelly, they moved the patient from their bed to the floor, and through quick and professional actions in starting CPR and the use of automated external defibrillator, the patient was shocked 2 times before the ambulance arrived, and her heart rate started beating on its own. The patient was transported by Lisbon Emergency with a heart rhythm to Central Maine Medical Center. After a long stay in rehab, the patient has returned home. Officer Sean McGee and Officer Sean Kelly, Ryan McGee and Sean Kelly, made the difference in the survival of these patients and thus merit certainly these official recognitions during this week. We want to thank them for their effort, their dedication. We're very proud that they represent the town of Lisbon and Lisbon Emergency, and let it be known that these actions are officially recognized as admirable and very professional. Signed, the Chief of Lisbon Emergency, Lee Gamache. The reason why Ryan has the little piece of paper is because he already has the plaque. It's like his second one already. So, thank you very much.
And I want to say congratulations from the town council to both of you. You do a great job.
Appreciate that. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Next item, Twyla.
Is the town manager's report?
I've been setting up a schedule for workshops for the council. It was something that everybody had expressed. I tentatively have set up June 28th at 7 o'clock. We'll be looking at some of the road, discontinuance of roads and some other items. I thought that would be a good place to start at 7. I'll get that out to all of you in the information once I have it all ready for you. So if that works for everybody, I'll schedule it, and we can start having some good dialogue. And I've also been working with staff and on working on some strategic planning, and we'll start that hopefully in July, so the council will have a chance to do some goal setting and things like that. The other item is the council had made a recommendation on a volunteer that we have to receive the Spirit of American Foundation award for Androscoggin County. There was quite a few communities that submitted names. And Ross Cunningham was a recommendation from this council. He was recognized. He was kind of surprised to get a letter in the mail and be invited to a ceremony on June 23rd at the Androscoggin Grange in Green at 6:30 p.m. People can attend. I think they've invited Mark to give a award. So and he was quite surprised and well-deserved. He does quite a bit for our community as a volunteer.
He really has stepped up to the plate. So I
Yeah,
think
he really
yes,
has and continues to.
we appreciate
So,
that.
So congratulations to Ross, and that's all I have.
Next item, Twyla.
Under audience participation, those at this time in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward. Please use the microphone at the podium and state your name and address for the audience here and at home.
Mr. Fillmore.
I have several things that I'd like to bring out tonight. First of all, my name's Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. I think the first thing is that these recognition awards and everything, is there any reason why we can't put them in public meetings up at the first of these council meetings?
I was just saying that, actually, that we're going to do that in the
I
future.
think
That's what we're going to do in the
that
future.
was a great
I
idea
know.
because we had these people standing around.
Yeah.
They've done a good job for us. We don't need them hanging around. We need to recognize them right up front. So if we could have moved the awards, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't know, but I think that, we should move them up so that we could get presented with that.
Yep, I totally agree with that, and we'll do that in the future.
And the next thing is, what's the reading on the camera staying on until the meeting is adjourned? If you were going to look into that and see if we could continue that so that people who review these meetings on Thursdays get the complete meetings and not just, part of it. We need to know the results of your executive sessions so that we know what is going on. You said you were going to look into it, and I haven't heard anything further on that, and I was wondering where we were with that.
It's really up to having a camera person here, and usually he's a high school student, he goes home. if
I
it's
know,
like-
Gillen, yes, I understand that. And then
Maybe you
there
can teach
isn't
me to
an
run the
alternate
camera.
Plan or something?
Maybe you can teach me to run the camera.
We have a very difficult time getting volunteers to run this camera. We're very lucky to have this young man here
I
who has
agree.
been very reliable and does a good job for us. Up until that point, we were pretty inconsistent at times.
I'll look into that too and see if there's a way, even if we can get a cameraman back, we can put up a little placard at the end that says the result of a vote or something.
Maybe it just needs to be, the executive session needs to be moved up. That would solve the problem, because you come back in, he's still here. It's just a matter of moving it up on the agenda. I don't know. I mean, there are just different ways that we can do this without causing a great deal of problem. It shouldn't be a big issue.
I acknowledge that there's an issue there, and we're trying to work on it. Thank you, Larry.
Okay.
What else do you have?
The next thing is, we're paying $32,000 plus to an individual who cannot operate or supervise the department he is overseeing. Okay? And I think that's wrong that we pay that much money when the individual can't even operate the equipment, cannot even be on the facility.
Okay, Larry, I'm sorry,
That's
that's a personnel issue.
We
We really
can't talk
can't go
about
into that.
Okay, where do we
State the
bring?
fact of what the concern is, but you can't talk about the employee or the pay issue. If you have a concern about what he's not or what's not being done well, leave it away from a person, just say what the issue is.
That's why I didn't mention any names or anything.
'Cause it's isolated to one
I was
person?
trying to keep it without being personal. I'm saying that the dollar value of 32,000,
I would put
could be
your
better spent if we made one of the two individuals who are qualified to operate the equipment, if we promoted them, we would save ourselves some money. That was the issue. Now, that's why I didn't mention any names or anything, because I didn't want it to become a personnel
I'd put your,
issue.
put your request or your concern in writing.
Okay,
Direct it to me, please.
very good. Okay, the last thing that I'm going to bring up tonight is, I would like to know why there is no one in this town looking for the $32,500 that was missing from the Community Development Block Grant Program and the Farmers Home Administration. Dot and I have asked 3 times to have a forensic audit of that department because the money is still missing. We can't go after it if we don't know where it is, but it's our taxpayers' dollars, okay? We need to come up with an investigation or
We
something.
do know where it is and that it was given out to a business, which then disappeared. I mean, that's where it is in our records.
I can further. We are in the process of the attorney's in the process of putting together a civil case to collect it.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Okay, thank you.
Yes, good evening. My name's Debbie Berry, Lisbon Falls. The one thing was already mentioned regarding the wards, not to allow these people to wait so long. That's great. You guys will address that. Number 2, I was looking at council orders, and there were 3, and also under number 10, executive session regarding labor negotiations. I hope you're mindful that the unions aren't elected by the taxpayers, and I know that's a sensitive issue, but we do elect our representatives, but we don't elect the unions. So hopefully during the budget process that you're mindful of that I know they ask for things as they should. We always shoot for the stars, but hopefully we go small, and that the unions don't prevail. And the economy's not good, 9% unemployment, groceries going up, gas going up, taxes going up. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll assure you, we do always try to negotiate as hard with the unions as we can to get as good a deal for the taxpayers. That's what I was elected for.
Dorothy Fitzgerald. Since when, I don't know how to phrase this, secret meetings. I wasn't made aware until last Wednesday afternoon, June 1st, that there was a budget workshop on Tuesday evening, May 31st. I'm on the Budget Committee. I even checked the website. It was not on the website. I was not notified. There were, I understand, 2 members of the Budget Committee that did attend. They were late because the meeting started at 6. Who is supposed to notify the Budget Committee, the Town Council? Who is supposed to notify us?
The message went out by my assistant to all the members of the committee and all the council members. So I'm not sure why you weren't on the list, but how come your chair and vice chair of the committee didn't notify you? It was
Evidently,
up on
they
the
weren't.
board.
Evidently, I didn't mean to interrupt. Did you?
It was on the board out front. I'd have to see if it was on the website. I don't recall, but I could check
Well,
that.
I checked the website and it was not on there. I asked one of the committee members that is present tonight. He said that he saw it on your revolving sign. I didn't happen to go by, so I did not see it. And you would have to be driving by the exact 15 seconds that it was being aired. I'm not happy about this. Is there going to be another budget workshop?
No, the council will be addressing the budget on June 21st and approving.
So there are no more workshops. This is a done deal.
Not until they vote.
Is it true that another police officer was added last Tuesday evening to the budget?
Not last Tuesday. It's been in the budget since we've started deliberations, not the first budget presentation, but shortly after that.
Well, the first budget that I got in March was totally different than the last one that, can't remember the date, a few weeks ago.
May 19th.
Is it true that another $750 was added to the fire department
No,
at last Tuesday's meeting?
no.
I don't believe so.
When do you anticipate a date for the, for our budget to be set for the tax commitment?
The budget will be hopefully approved on June 21st. And then once the budget is approved, the assessor will commit taxes generally towards the end of August.
Is that when the deadline is?
We try to commit it then, so it's, taxes will be due on September 15th. I think that's generally the date.
Well, I'm not pleased about secret meetings. This is not the way that a town should be run. If one of the budget members had not been driving by, and then even the 2 budget committee members that attended were late, almost missed the meeting, because it started at 6 when they usually start at 7. I'm disappointed. It's not the way to run a town.
Thank you, Dot. And I don't believe it was a secret meeting. I believe if we had some communication errors there at all, I apologize for that. And, if you need to be contacted in some other way than email, if you're on a committee like that, make sure that you contact either myself or Mr. Eldridge so that we know, because emails go out and we're not sure who did or didn't get them sometimes.
You have my email.
Okay, all right.
My name is Dan LeBlanc. I live up on the Fisher Road. And my concern is this. June the 14th, upcoming, we're going to have a referendum bond issue. There's going to be 3 bonds. The town is going to be asking for the taxpayers' money. Now, my concern is the Fisher Road. They want to borrow money, taxpayers' money, to repair this road and the bridge that these trucks have beaten to smithereens. They've been pounding this road since 1974, since I moved in. And let me tell you one thing. If we spend money, even a dime, that is money you might as well throw in the sink. Because these trucks, in a short order, is going to pound it right back out. When I moved in there in 1974, that road, or the bridge, I should say, was posted 5 ton. Since then, in the mid-'80s, I think you can check with Public Works, one of the trucks went through that bridge. They repaired that bridge at the taxpayer's expense, and they removed the posted sign. How nice and dandy. Now the trucks, they continue to go through that road. Let me tell you, that road is posted at a 35 miles per hour speed limit. If a car goes over that speed limit, they get a ticket. If it's bad enough for a car to be speeding on that road, heaven forbid a truck going over 35, which they do. They use no discretion whatsoever. Now, since I've lived in that house, they have moved that house right off the foundation. One corner is cracked right out. There's 4 blocks coming right out. Now, I guess what the concern is this. Let's go ahead, fix the road, spend the money, but let us get that road posted. They do not have to use the Fisher Road. They can come up 190, they can come up 125, go down the Store Road, make a quick right to the west. It's all over. But they choose the Fisher Road because it's shorter. And they're using, and I'm going to repeat, they are using no discretion whatsoever when they come by my house, and I'm right on a corner. Even if the speed limit was 35, I would think they would slow down at least. No, sir. So that's my recommendation to this board. If we're going to spend the taxpayers' money, let us not throw it in the sinkhole. Let us get that road posted.
Thank you, sir.
Or, if you don't want to do that, let us not fix it. Leave it alone.
Chief, can we look into that?
We have. There is no sign up there currently for the posting of the bridge. We had, Mr. LeBlanc, he and I had spoken earlier about, I thought it was a road that you had said was posted according to
I
public.
did not say the road,
Okay, that was
Mr.
my
Eldridge, I said the
understanding.
bridge.
But Buttons said the road was never posted. He didn't mention the bridge. But we can certainly bring it before the council to have that, a weight limit put on and make sure that the speed limit's enforced. So, it
Well,
will
that's
come
not
before.
going to get it.
Excuse me?
That it won't get it. These trucks, they're going to ignore that speed limit like they,
Well, if the police are sitting there, they won't.
I don't think they will.
Well,
I think if you're going to post
won't
it,
touch 'em.
if you're going to post it, you're going to have to post it back at the beginning of the road, because I'm sure those trucks get right, down in
no
low to
place
that
for them
bridge,
to
and they
back
can't
out.
turn around or back up, so they think, well, I'll just
we'll
risk
try to
it.
correct it.
But yeah, if we can post the whole road, would be a help.
There's only one cure, is to post it,
Oh,
no
yeah.
trucks.
Makes sense to me. Because I think a lot of these drivers just now are driving on GPS. They don't even know where they are until they're there.
We'll talk with Chief.
And I'm going to repeat, it's bad enough a car going down that road speeding, let alone a truck, heaven forbid.
Yeah,
My-
three of us here live on Route 9, so we understand the idea of trucks speeding past at high speeds.
My wife almost got killed one day because of one truck. She's lucky to be with us.
Thank you, sir. And we will look into that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next item, Twyla?
Under Appointments, Order 2011-105, Planning Board Associate Member Resignation, Gerald Campkey.
Jerry Kemke submitted a letter of resignation to John Potvin. He was informed that we had somebody else looking to serve the planning board, so he was willing to resign his position. He's on medical leave currently, isn't feeling too well, but the other person has not brought forth their application, so my recommendation would be to sit on this for a while until we get the application in from the gentleman who's expressed an interest, and we'll bring this back before you. I think as it stands now, we could use, if we can get Jerry to the meetings, it'd be helpful, because sometimes not everybody can come.
Oh, yeah, and I've served with him on the planning board, and he's a really good member, so
he's a
it'd be-
really
it's a
good
loss to
resource.
lose him. And
Absolutely. So that would be my recommendation.
okay, so just if we don't accept his resignation yet, we'll hold out. All right. Do I have any feelings from that on the council? People want to accept it or hold on to it until we can try to get somebody to put in their name?
Hold on to it, I guess.
I mean, I understand what you're trying to attain, but if he's wanting to resign for
Has he-
health
has he
reasons
expressed
and
a
other
willingness to
reasons,
stay
it's
on
not
at all?
like we can hold him
Well, he
hostage.
hasn't expressed an interest to stay on that I know of. All I know is that he submitted a letter of
I
resignation.
don't want to try to
Can't
compel
hold
him if
him
he's not.
hostage.
He's an alternate. I mean, you
I
could
wanna
accept it
resign.
and just make sure John gets the people to his meeting so we have a quorum. That's my biggest concern. There are times we
Can't get a quorum.
I think the respectful thing to do would be to ask him, to say to him that while there has been interest voiced for somebody to take that position, it hasn't yet happened, so, extend the offer for him to stay on. I mean, we can't hold him hostage to stay on a position that he doesn't want to do.
I will speak to Larry.
Any further thoughts from council on that? All right, do I have a motion?
We'll just move it to another
We'll
agenda.
just move it to our next agenda. All right, sounds like a plan. We will do that then. All right. So next item?
Is under council communications?
Just have one quick thing.
Go ahead.
I have one quick recommendation for the council to look into getting some sort of a plaque to put over the AEDs that were installed in the schools. Last meeting that we had, there was the recognition award with the young man, Mr. Robitaille, and I thought it would be nice for the town council to do some sort of a commemorative, if you will, and get some small plaques saying that we extend our appreciation to this young man and for the AEDs and place it over each one of the AEDs that's in the school.
Go ahead, Roger.
I've got a couple things. One was, we had a workshop last week with the, Mr. Van Tiden, and he gave a presentation and wasn't televised. And I was asked why. So I told the person that I would bring it to the attention of the council. When we have these workshops, there's a lot of people that would like to keep in contact with what's going on, and not presenting one, especially as informative as the last one was. I think it's kind of a disservice. We should tend to that a little bit more.
I hadn't realized that was not online, or,
It was kind of a short notice thing.
yeah, is there any way to get it on TV?
Also, I'd like to say that we've got 2 employees in Public Works that have medical issues, and I want to wish them their best and hope they have a quick recovery, and thanks for what they do for us.
And I'll second that. I think that we do have a really good crew in Public Works who tries really hard, and they're often not appreciated enough by the public. So I wish them well. Anything further?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Moxie Days is coming up in 4.5 weeks. We have a great group of volunteers that have been helping with the committee, and it's a huge festival. It's been in very many magazines and publications this year. We have a new communications director that has contacted newspapers and magazines all over the country. We're working hard to represent Moxie and the town. We are selling T-shirts right now for $15 to help fund the festival. It's a festival that costs us, the town, over $20,000 to put on. And we have the T-shirts that we're selling for that. Also, too, there'll be still open room for vendors. And there's still plenty of room in the parade. I've been getting lots of calls this week, and it looks like we're going to have a great lineup for the parade. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to call the town office, talk to Scott or Twyla, or you're welcome to call me at home. Thank you.
Anything further? All right. And next item?
Is to adjourn.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, in a second. Anyone
Nobody
else wanna
wants to go
Nobody
home?
else wants to go home?
So
I
moved.
do.
I'll
So
second it.
let's
Thank
go.
you.
And all those in favor?
Quarter
And
past,
opposed?
5-0.
I need signatures before everybody walks away.